John 15:15 is pretty straightforward. It does have a really nice double accusative, and it has a relative clause that you need to phrase properly. But other than that, I'm sure you can do it. Uketi lego humas doulos, hati hadulos uk oiden te poie autu hakurios, humas de ereka philus, hati panta ha ekusa paratu patras mu ignorissa humin. No longer I, you, slaves. What's this? It's your double accusative, isn't it? So it's no longer I call you slaves. Why? Well, because the slave does not know. Then here you got to get your subject right. I mean, tia could be a nominative, but hakurios has to be a nominative. So it does not know his master what does. In other words, he does not know what his master does. So what case is that? Well, it's accusative, isn't it? It's a direct object. His master does what? Direct object of poie. But you, and this is one of those verbal forms you just have to memorize. It's the perfect of Lego, right? I can't give you help with that. Just memorize it. But I have called, in this context, you friends. What's that? Well, it's another great double accusative, isn't it? So we have two of them in this passage. Because all things, and then here's your relative clause. So where's the end of it? Well, it's what I heard, simple aorist of akuo, from my father. There's your relative clause, right? So if you just ignore it for the time being, it's all things, and this is the aorist of gnoridzo, right? Whenever you have that iota in this location, good chance that it's an idzo verb, in which case this certainly is. So it's gnoridzo. So I have made known to you. I have made known all things to you all. Well, what are the all things? The all things are what I heard from my father. So you have this nice relative clause that's defining the direct object of the verb gnorissa. So if we're going to phrase it, you come to a punctuation, you certainly break it there. A servant does not know what his master does. Again, you have a punctuation, so there will be a line there. But I have called you friends, punctuation, more importantly, a dependent clause, because all things, and then I'm going to put the relative clause on its own line just to make it really clear. So there's your phrases. So I no longer call you slaves. Why? Because the slave does not know what his master does. And then you have a post-positive, and it's kind of important. So let's get the post-positive out of there. So we're going to indent it. But I have called you friends. Why have you called them friends? Because all things, then you always connect your relative clause back to its antecedent. And here you can just do it by indenting it. And the only real trick here is that you've got to make it clear that ignorissa is not modifying akusa. And so I would do it just by putting an arrow here to an arrow here. So no longer do I call you slaves because, or servants, whatever you want to do with this, because the servant does not know what his master's doing. Again, notice the slight emphasis. Does not know what his master is doing, but you. So you have kind of a nice little contrast here, don't you, from here to there. But I have called you friends because all things, well, what all things? Which I heard from my Father, those all things I have made known to you all.